Greetings, you've landed at the VUC, IP Communications and VoIP Community. We would like to thank Simwood.com for their support. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is from OnSIP.com, and you can go to GetOnSIP.com for a URL people can click to call you. We've been privileged over the last 5 years to be using the best conference bridge on the planet. Yes, I'm talking about ZipDX.com, full color, full featured, full HD conference bridge. Our website, vuc.me on the webs, hosted by Bluehost.com. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are from Voxbone.com. Yep, welcome to VUC 548. Look, NetSplit time. What is going on here? It looks like it's all from Matrix, too. Is that possible? Anyway, Michael is going to help me out by showing our events calendar so we can get through that. First off, actually not first off, right? ClueCon. Oh, yes, it is. August 3rd to 6th. Q Live announcer. Ladies and gentlemen, ClueCon will be happening in Chicago, August 3rd through 6th, 2015. And most people go to both. Everybody I know who is going to either AstraCon or ClueCon is actually going to both. So, good idea. I wish I could go. I'd love to go back to Chicago. But the usual suspects will be there. James and company. Then we're going to move on to AstraCon, which is, of course, something you won't want to miss. And it's closer to Europe. It's in the Universal Properties at Orlando, October 13th to 15th. The two beers have disappeared. I don't know what happened to them, but they're gone.
Fred's going to AstraCon. Did you see that?
Who is?
Fred.
Fred is going to AstraCon. No, I'm really sorry I'm not going. We're still going. Oh, there it is. Fred's going to.
Where else can you do voice over IP and ride on the Hogwarts Express?
Indeed. All right. Let us move over to. By the way, if you want to call us on those famous Voxbone numbers, James, you will check out the UK and see if it's okay. In the US, 646-475-2098. And in the United Kingdom, look on your screen. That would be 0203-051. 6955.
Keep it up for a moment.
Is it okay or not?
No, I haven't got there yet.
It's never been right. And, of course, you can check vuc.me/Voxbone for the numbers in something like 36 different cities that we're doing this in. So, here I am in a second. There we go. And we've got...
Press *6 to unmute.
Oh, my. We have a terrific panel with us today, as always. And I figured what would be better than to get a bunch of Brits from the UK and, I don't know, they're all there. They're all home. To celebrate Independence Day while we're waiting. Jerry's with us, so that's good. We have one American located in America who is coming. This is the big news. And I see Dan Jenkins on IRC. Hello, Dan. And somebody else is saying something I'm not getting on IRC. Anyway, Jerry, very long time no see. You got audio? We need to get a report from you on what you've been doing. But while you're working that out, since you're not ready to speak yet, of course, we got James and Andy. Keith and I were talking, and all of us actually were talking about different mobiles. Keith mentioned, and you can tell us a little bit more about this, Keith. Where did you hear this? That there's a rumor of a new Nexus 5. They're going to refresh and bring back one of my favorite phones.
Yeah, obviously the Nexus 5 was sort of discontinued or removed from the Google Play Store and a number of other outlets a few months ago, I think. And a lot of people kind of we're sad about that, including myself. I've had a Nexus 5 now for quite a while and been a very happy user of it. But there are rumours flying around on the grapevine that there is a plan for a refreshed model to be launched probably October time this year. Still rumours at the moment, but quite a lot of weight behind them. and that the refreshed model would be perhaps created by Huawei rather than LG, who did the original.
Right.
Not a huge amount of detail on it, other than it would be increased memory, increased processing power, similar size screen, similar size sort of form factor. I've heard of various things about an improved camera, but obviously the kind of key thing that they would be pushing on it would be Android M, because that's around about the time that Android M is being launched.
Anything about fingerprint scanner? That's obviously the flavor of the week. So
I've not heard anything about fingerprint scanner on that. I have heard there's a potential update to the 6 with a fingerprint scanner on it, but that wouldn't be until next year.
It seems to me that the 6, the Nexus 6, that is, sort of, they were playing catch up a little bit to Samsung with the Galaxy Note series, whereas the 5 was actually a preferable form factor. In fact, I actually like the Nexus 4 in terms of form factor.
The 4 is wonderful, apart from two things. One, it tends to overheat quite a lot, and two, if you put it down on any surface, unless that surface is completely flat, it will slide off because it is such a slippy little bugger.
Well, and the glass backs on them tended to break a lot. As witness, mine's got, you probably can't see it, but it's got a carbon fiber skin on the back to hold the cracked glass back together.
But they are lovely. I mean, this is a Nexus 4. You can tell by the sparkly back. They are lovely phones, but I say you put them down and they slide.
Yeah, but it was exactly the right form factor for a telephone, where even the half-inch bigger that the Nexus 5 is, or the Nexus 6 is bigger yet, just gets to be a little too big for my taste. So I'm quite keen that they do a refresh of the Nexus 5, because I would certainly go for that.
And we've talked about this before. My own opinion is 5.5 is good. I think 6 would be too big. 5 is okay. Nexus 5 was one of my favorite phones. That's probably the best phone I owned before the one I have now, which is a OnePlus One. Wanted to mention also that the OnePlus 2 is coming out. A lot of people are getting really irritated with the kind of buzz that they create. This is a Chinese company, and as James would agree, because you know people at Huawei, I think, and
I do.
That whole company culture and marketing culture is very, very different from the West.
It certainly
doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it, by the way. It's just that it's different, and they don't get certain things. OnePlus has done a couple of wacky things. Am I crazy? This is my senior mind thinking they did something like almost a wet T-shirt contest. They did some wacky thing with women, and that created a big stir, and then they backed down on it.
The Chinese companies always get themselves into deep water at Mobile World Congress by having beautiful young ladies demonstrating models that they know very little about.
I'm not opposed to that, though. But at any rate, yeah, they do crazy things. So this launch, I just want to mention that this launch, by the way, the OnePlus 2 does have a fingerprint scanner. Is that the right? Are they actually called?
No, I've heard that the OnePlus 2 is going to be made available on the UK network 3.
And that's good. Oh, OnePlus 2 is 3. That's logical, right? But anyway,
I feel very boring here because I only have a brace of iPhone 6s.
I know.
How boring is that?
And a real hat.
I have an iPhone 3C, I think that is. And I've got an iPhone 4 somewhere around.
I have a 4, not an S, just a 4. Where is that thing, by the way?
I've got a Nokia Asha.
Oh, that's a cracking phone, the Nokia Asha.
All right, wait a minute. We need to find out who has the oldest phone.
Okay.
I've got the oldest.
That you can reach right now.
Right now, right, okay.
Who has the oldest phone you can reach right now?
Oh, God, I've got to get the key.
Yeah, we'll wait. We'll wait. Jerry, unmute and tell us what you've been doing. You were working on... Keith, I think you may almost win. I can't see the year, but it's
T39M.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I've got a Nokia 3200 in one of these drawers somewhere.
I think I may beat all of you, though.
BlackBerry Pearl is the oldest I'm still hanging on to.
Well, if you're going to go that way, I also have a Pilot 4. Or 3, sorry. But that's not a phone.
Well, without moving out of the chair, I can't go any older than an iPhone 5, I'm afraid.
Wow, that's Ridiculous. That's not even in competition. Just a second. Let me see if I can grab this.
Actually, I saw there was an interesting article posted the other day. It was sort of the how to put it. It was like the top 5 coolest phones that weren't smartphones, and there were a few things listed there, or there were before the iPhone, as it were, and it ended with the N97. Except I kind of take issue with it being included on that list because I don't think they sold more than like 12 of those.
And nearly all of those to R&D departments.
All right.
Well, I mean, I remember thinking that was a really cool looking phone, but by the time they actually made it over to the U.S., there was no carrier support, and Fry's was the only one carrying them.
Okay.
So who wins between me and Keith on this? There's this, right?
That's a Nokia Flip. Nokia
Close
made it.
to what he has, but wait till he gets back. Keith, who wins, you or me on this one? It's a Nokia Flip. I don't. The model I can't visibly see, but I think I might win with my candy bar.
You muted, Keith.
Oh yeah.
That's a 5200, is it? The candy bar?
I think the candy bar wins, don't you?
No, I can gazump that. Come on.
You could do
Oh,
better.
come on, you had to go inside and look. That's
Well,
okay.
no, I'm outside. I don't leave devices out. What about that?
Does it go on though? Does it go on? Look. Hold on.
No, the
It's
battery.
not a Motorola radio.
Mine actually goes on. See, wait a minute. If I can
Not a
get-
cell phone.
That. It's not really surprising. It's been underneath my desk for the last 8 years.
Only 8?
Yeah. This is an
There's no
Icon
sin.
IC2 AT, if you know what one of those is.
Okay. Just before we go any further, gentlemen, there is a request on IRC from Laurie. He says the audio on his computer is low. Could we shout, please?
Yeah, I saw that.
Hello, Laurie!
Speaking of request from IRC, hey, you Matrix guys, stop monkeying with our IRC channel, because I'm
Yeah,
getting...
really. They're flooding it with.
Matthew,
I-
stop it.
Well, it's they've got, for every person who joins IRC, they have some kind of a parallel, something that joins to monitor that person, and we've reached the channel limit. In some
Yeah, we're
fashion.
pretty much flooded.
Okay.
by-
Anyway, back to devices. Anybody tell me what this is?
It's
An
a Nokia
N800.
1800.
And
No, N800.
N800.
That was the it was
one.
quasi tablet PC right before iPhones or before iPads.
Yeah, and this is hot stuff and it's dead. Who's that?
That was, you know what that is? That's the resting place of Symbian.
Hold on.
But this is not Symbian.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
No, this is Linux-based.
See, I thought I was looking forward to trying the N97, but it never made it over here. That came over. N97 was just after that N800.
Oh, I've got one of those there somewhere. Hang on.
All
bet-
you UK guys, you all were Nokia fans at that point in time.
Well, Nokia were brilliant over here. They were by far the best phones in the
Yeah.
late 90s and early 2000s, in my view.
My former employers used the
I have one of those.
9000.
That's the N97. I have that.
No, this is an E70 with a folding keyboard.
Yeah.
What
My former employers had the N9000 communicator, which was also good as a weapon.
Sorry, yes, you're right, David.
like you could hit somebody with it.
This was a brilliant phone. The E70 was a brilliant phone.
Snap!
I did some work for BT in their operations centre for about a year, and for the first 3 months of it, because their operations centre has no signal, I couldn't use my laptop, and the only way I could use email was to actually go outside and do it on this.
Brilliant. And I hope you had TruePhone installed. Well, not you didn't even have to install it. It just worked because it's all native. In those good old days. Anyway, I was still going with wacky phones. What about that?
Sure.
That's from Metro PCS. Oh, I don't know what that was.
PCS. Wasn't that a technology?
Metro PCS is
Bell?
a small carrier here in the U.S. that's now owned by somebody else.
Didn't they use the same technology as the Rabbit phone and the original one-to-one stuff?
No, it wasn't quite as crap as that.
Well, Sprint's first region was called PCS.
Look what I've got.
Verizon.
Ooh.
It's Oh, oh, oh.
There's something about a flip phone, you know. There is just something final about end of phone call or start of phone
click.
call.
Yeah, they always went down well in America, didn't they?
Yeah, when
Yeah.
you see
Nokia made them
just
famous.
TV going. All right then.
But that was like, that goes back to Star Trek though.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, it does.
it does.
Beat me up, Scotty.
So now you've got the watch, right? And the watch, as Keith was saying before we actually went on air, you can watch you can look at watch your watch. I've got a message here, for example, and it's very handy and all that. But if you don't use the Google messaging client, which I don't, you can't answer SMSs, which was pretty cool before. So you could just tap your watch and go, yeah, okay, or some simple thing. But I think you have to be using Hangouts or whatever their messaging app is in order to do that.
I bought last week an Oyster watch.
Oyster watch.
An oyster, not an oyster. A pebble.
Pebble.
Not an oyster.
Just like Oyster's Rolex.
Yeah, that's right. Not an oyster. No, it's a pebble.
Oyster.
It didn't work. It didn't boot, so I had to take it back. It was very disappointing.
You got a
My
pebble?
problem isn't the Pebble, it's the Bam Bam, because I was always whacking the watch against the desk I was working on and trashing them, so I just gave up on wearing them. I'm not inclined to go back, to be honest.
You can't say that. Yeah, I can't have a whole load of junk like that.
I think I want a Bluetooth connected hearing aid.
My
Actually,
daughter has those.
hearing aids are that's an area of technology that's fast evolving.
Yeah, my daughter has Bluetooth hearing aids.
Getting much better. Yeah.
Okay, well, I wasn't actually sure that they existed, but I would probably put money on them existing. But it is something, certainly as I get older, and both James and I have noticed this over the last few months, is that when you're in a really noisy area, it's actually quite difficult to pull out somebody's conversation.
What's that, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know what? It also tends to come with married men, but that's another.
Yes, so that's selective hearing. That's slightly different.
The only difference is the application of intellect to the process of hearing. But my friends at Etymotic, who have a long history of making test equipment for audiologists and also in-ear monitors, they have a lovely thing on their consumer products. They're wired headsets for smartphones, where they have an app that you can run on your smartphone, and it will selectively blend in a user-definable amount of ambience. Because theirs are noise-reducing headsets, but if you're riding a bicycle or something like that, it can alert you to the fact that there's traffic around you or whatnot.
Yeah, I think
really quite helpful.
My daughter's hearing aids, they come with like a remote control unit, which actually allows you to do that on the remote control unit, and I think the Bluetooth actually works within the remote control rather than actually directly to the hearing aids. But she's always using it. She uses it with her laptop. She uses it with her phone, everything.
Perhaps we ought to do a piece one week about enhanced audio devices for people like Andy and I who are getting slightly senior. That was quite interesting, quite useful.
Have you changed spectacles, James?
I have. What the other ones on?
And it's really
not usually have.
Think about it this way: there's a lot of talk about augmented reality in terms of visual overlays and stuff, heads-up displays kinds of things. But I think that actually it's going to be more immediately useful in terms of helping people with hearing problems. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I see you're getting in the Clucon spirit there, James.
With my Astrocon glasses, absolutely. But the problem is, when I put these on, I can't see anything on my screen. Absolutely wonderful. So I'll take this back off again. Let's see whether I can make my screen a little bit brighter as well. That's one drawback about being outside, isn't it?
So a question for you, James. Because there was an FCC decision last week that you might have some insight on. Or maybe not, but we'll ask it anyway. So the FCC decided that smaller internet telephony providers need to have or should be able to have direct access to DIDs, which means that the big ILECs have to kind of make them available now within the U.S. How do you think that stands to impact companies that were in the middle market there, reselling DIDs to smaller providers and kind of?
Well, clearly it's bad news for them, but good news for everybody else. Because the cost of US DIDs is going to go even lower. Not that they're expensive at the moment anyway.
I don't see anywhere to delete it.
Yeah, I was just sort of wondering for, Didex and Voxbone and some folks who are kind of playing with that, maybe it has potential to have an impact.
I don't quite see it that way, I mean, it depends how big you are. You're going to have to be quite large to want to go through the pain of setting up all the various contracts and finding ways of doing this and creating tools to make it happen.
Yeah, and these days, just having a DID is only one tiny part of the complete PSTN service. So you probably want to buy other services alongside it as well, like the SMS capability, number portability, emergency calling, lawful interception, all those kind of bits and pieces. So just having a number on its own is of limited use, I would suggest.
So does this FCC mandate, does this maybe mean that then the opportunity is for some of these people who are in that space already to maybe subcontract that effort on the part of the big ILECs who maybe don't want to be bothered with that business but now have this regulatory compliance issue?
Well, I don't really understand what it's all about because it never was difficult to get numbers anyway. I mean, you get numbers through multiple sources, so, and in a number of circumstances they come totally free. So, where's the big beef here? I mean, it's nothing really exciting, is it? Unless I've missed something.
Well, I don't know. Somebody must have petitioned for it, so there has to be some motivation somewhere, and I'm not sure quite where that is. It would be nice maybe to get somebody who's a little more in touch with the issue to come talk to us about it.
It's worth mentioning, Fred just typed in on IRC, my big concern about the FCC mandate is the potential for the FCC to bring bigger taxes to the smaller guys instead of letting them pass it through to their carrier. And that's actually a good point.
Just, because folks like ONSIP are getting DIDs kind of through third parties because that was how it was done traditionally. And now, it seems to me it's got to be an annoyance for the Verizons and the AT&Ts of the world.
Yeah. It's always been possible to get local ranges of numbers relatively easily. The tricky bit is getting a complete set of US numbers because you have to jump through hoops in order to get a complete set. And of course, most people want access to numbers that are local to where they live, as opposed to just random numbers in Washington State or wherever.
Hey, as we have a British contingent with us, I'd like to read you something and get your opinions on it. This is from the people at ind.ie, so it's the Indie movement. And just a very quick read on a letter I got from them today. It says, hello everyone, there's no Friday roundup as Laura and I are packing. As you may have heard, we decided to leave the UK following the re-election of the Tories and David Cameron's pledge to ask for back doors in messaging applications, scrap the Human Rights Act, and bring back the Snoopers Charter. Then the rest is more personal, but interesting. Anybody have any comments on that? Is anybody following that? I think, Keith, you might be. I don't know about James and Andy, but is this serious, this Cameron thing about, we're going to make encryption illegal and all that? Where is this?
I think it's silly for a number of reasons. First of all, the genie's already out of the bottle, right? For anybody who is going to use it for illegal means, it's not going to stop them from continuing to use the strong encryption that's available and open source in a lot of cases, which you can't mandate people, you can't mandate criminals to use weakened technology. It's just not going to happen. So what's going to happen potentially is, if this goes through, is that everybody who's law-abiding will be using the weakened technology, and everyone who's actually the criminals is going to be using the stronger stuff. So it defeats the point. The other issue is obviously if you're using weakened technology, it is by definition weakened. If the British government and GCHQ can read it, so potentially can the Russians and Chinese and everyone else. So the question then becomes, should we be weakening the technology or putting back doors in to when it potentially exposes us to all of the other people getting access to it, not just the British government and GCHQ.
But isn't that a little bit the argument of if guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns? I'm not saying it's good or bad, just that it's kind of the same concept.
It's similar. I think there's a difference with guns is that you've actually got a supply chain thing there. Without getting into gun law things which are very controversial too much, I think America's different because there are so many guns there. But if you actually look at Australia, when they outlawed guns, then basically the street price of weapons went from around about $5,000 a firearm to around about $30,000 or $40,000. So to actually get hold of an illegal firearm in Australia now is actually really difficult to do. But because they're physical things and you have to trade them. But encryption isn't like that. Encryption technology is there. It's open source. Anybody can pick it up for free. And quite frankly, it's not going to be practical for the government to completely block access to it.
That's true. And in a way, the legislation that's being suggested is actually less rigorous than the legislation that's been in place in France for the last, 25 years. So are you suffering, Randy, in France?
No, I thought that got knocked out. What you're talking about may be related to when Windows NT first got networking, or Windows.
No, it predates.
Windows. What was the first Windows with networks already? I can't remember.
Windows for Workgroups.
Windows for Workgroups. Okay, when they exported, that was the export law from the United States that you could not export strong encryption to anywhere. I don't know. And yes, so then we didn't have encryption. Hey, I didn't know what encryption was, and neither did anybody else, basically. But
you didn't need it in those days.
No.
The problem with backdoors and encryption is a backdoor in an encryption system is only useful if nobody knows that it's there.
Right.
Because if people know that it's there, then they're simply not going to use that encryption system, and so mandating its use, you haven't accomplished anything because it won't be used by anybody who you want to be using it, and the people who do use it are not the people you're interested in anyway by passing that law.
Exactly.
And the principle of it, I think, is flawed because the classic thing is the NSA and the NSA gathering of data, and when they were actually queried about it, they turned around, oh yeah, we solved and helped solve loads of crimes and potential terrorists, and when they were actually pushed on this, it turned out to be, the number of terrorist quote terrorist attempts that they foiled was about 2 or 3 or something like that, and even then, when you actually looked at them, they only loosely categorized them as terrorist attacks. So you kind of have to look at the motivation of it, because if you're spending, this sort of thing could cost an awful lot of money to implement. It requires, a lot of the money that's invested in places like the NSA and GCHQ, and actually very little of it is actually that more effective compared with the existing legal intercept capabilities that we've largely got.
It is, in fact, an industrial example of how of the electoral reality that you can win an argument by playing upon people's fears, more so than by putting forth an intellectual argument and hoping that they understand. But that's the industrial reality is you can build that aspect of a military-industrial complex just by saying, not so much laying out the facts of this is what we've saved you from, but saying, oh, there are boogeymen out there, and so what, right?
Yeah, it's structured paranoia, really, in so many ways. And as far as I'm concerned, the whole thing, looking at it from a political point of view, they've either been incredibly badly advised, which is plausible, but at the same time, I can't quite see that. Or they are indeed playing the scaredy cat card to try and get more powers for whatever reason, and I really cannot see what the reason is. The only thing I know is that I despise our Home Secretary with a passion.
Well, they do seem to be pretty clueless. A thought that just occurred to me: most things that happen, you can go back 1,000 years, 2,000 years. You go back to ancient Rome, before Christ, whatever you want, and you will have models of those things. For example, social networks. People before social networks, for centuries, people gathered around water coolers, or before then there was always Agora and all of that. But when you get into encryption, yeah, obviously there were codes back in the day, but nothing very efficient. And today, it's hard to picture, say, even 100 years ago, anything that resembles this problem that we have today, which is, are we the problem that everybody has today, including governments, which is, how do we know what everybody's saying anymore? And the answer is, well, you can't, for reasons that everybody has just put out. That the people who know what they're doing are going to be able to get open source encryption anyway. And as far as the pronouncements of various governments, they seem to be extremely clueless. And you would think that they would ask for or seek out better counsel. I don't understand why they're not.
I would give you to the argument that we are more at risk from clueless governing bodies than terrorists.
Yeah.
I agree. The analogy I would use, and it's a kind of far-fetched analogy, but I don't think it's a million miles, is if the government turned around and said, we want to put, and we're kind of not that far away from it now, actually, but the government said we want to put CCTV, including audio monitoring, on every lamppost in the UK, and even maybe say in every public sort of speaking sort of meeting place. So we want to have CCTV and audio monitoring of everything that goes on there, because some terrorists might go and have a little huddle in a pub and decide to do something, and we need to be able to have the ability to record those and actually detect them and so on and so forth. I don't think that's actually much different from what they're proposing with the encryption thing. It's potentially a massive invasion of privacy, but also, and if it's anything like what they've previously done, then it's not one which is subject to any judicial oversight. It's just something that they give to the security services and say, have fun, go and play with this. And also there's this massive potential for it to be abused either by people working within that industry because there's no oversight, or by people hacking into that infrastructure and using it.
Yeah,
Dan Jenkins made an excellent suggestion, which was to ping Ule. I know Ule is usually busy, but I did email him and I did send him an IM, so we'll see if we can get him in here, because that's true that his input will be interesting.
So anyway, what else can we talk about? How about Google Fi?
All right, what about Google Fi? And how is that going to work in the UK, by the way? It needs two providers, right? And two carriers, right?
Well, I think we know who one of them certainly is.
3?
Which is going to be 3. They're the obvious people to pair with. Fi, by the way, is just a data SIM, which then uses voice over IP over the top of the data service.
So that's right in your wheelhouse, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
That's stuff that you've been doing for a long time.
Yes, it is. And I'm not going to say anything more about that at this stage. Strangely enough.
Well, I find it odd that they're going to bring Fi when they've had 10 years to bring Google Voice to the UK, and they kept promising it all this time, and they never have.
Yeah, but it seems that disparate Google services are destined to remain disparate Google services. And voice.
And there's a reason why they haven't made it to UK. And that is, it's difficult, because the PSTN works in a completely different way over here in the rest of the world, so it does the way it does in North America.
Well, especially the billing.
Well, yeah, the billing is just one tiny part of it. There's so many differences. The trunk signaling is totally different. North America uses ANSI. We use you.
Yeah, but those things are dealable. I think they're just they struggle with so many variations of dialing plan, of billing, regulatory regimes, billing kind of schemes. I think there's just too much variation for them to.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, if you talk to an American about billing regimes, they will swear blind that called party pay is by far the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because they've been programmed. Oh yeah, because this is the way we do it.
Well,
got to be the best, but it isn't.
Well, that's the same all the way over. I mean, I used to do a lot of internet stuff, and I worked with a couple of companies in the late 90s, Teleglobe and AboveNet and a few others. And their perception of how the internet works was basically very, very US-centric. And when they came and said, we're going to start rolling out these points of presence and NAPs and stuff like that based on this commercial model across Europe, and we went, yeah, but we've got open peering points, and it doesn't work the same way. And they were, huh? No, it must work the same way. No, it doesn't work the same way. They had no idea.
Welcome to planet rest of the world.
Yeah.
Americans. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, PHY is interesting, but yeah, what I'm looking forward to is a day when we don't concern ourselves with its voice or its data. It's just data. Just charge me some nominal flat rate per, nominal rate per megabyte or whatever, and the voice part is just a part of that data flow. And
well, that's arguably what LTE is, but the thing is, then you're still relying on somebody to offer that data service. So it will probably for some time still be charged on a per minute voice basis, even though it's actually a service running over the top of the data network.
Yeah, but you know what? At that point, you're spending more on metering and billing than you are on delivering the service. And let's just shuck that all off.
Actually, who is metering voice anyway now? I don't think any of the carriers here in France do. It's all unlimited everything.
Well, no, they limited to a point, right?
Well, let me correct that, because I just saw a poster today for something. So for €6 a month, you have unlimited voice, because nobody uses, well, young people, nobody uses voice anymore. But I'm sure the SMSs, the text messages, are probably pretty expensive. I didn't, stop and read the whole thing. But on your basic plans that cost about the equivalent of 20 to 25 pounds a month, here it's everything unlimited except data, and data might be between 3 and 20 gigs depending on your plan.
Absolutely. I mean, the unlimited part is limited in itself, restricted to certain types of call. So it would typically be national calling.
Right.
It wouldn't cover things like premium rate, obviously. It wouldn't cover certain things like the UK national rate calling numbers, like 0845. And it wouldn't cover international, obviously.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me say two things, James. Excuse me for interrupting you, but just because it's right on point. First of all, we do have unlimited international on both mobile and terrestrial, VoIP.
Okay, wow.
For 110 destinations. So that's a lot of places you can call. But when I was in Lisbon, I called TAP, the airline, because my flight was canceled, and they never answered, and I had €60 on their so that's a premium number. And it was not indicated as a premium number, by the way. I mean, I'm not going to go back to Lisbon to try to fight that. So they charged my carrier. My carrier refuses to make an effort, so they billed me €60 for that call.
You should have been warned that you were dialing a premium number.
Absolutely. I even think it may be European law, but in any case, there in Portugal, there was no indication that this was a surtax thing. Anyway, James, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the tariffing model, the business model for mobile bundles is changing. And I think, given a couple of years, we're going to see a situation where the mobile operators are going to be charging for bundles of applications or certain functionality or a base access plan. And then once you've got that basic bundle, all the voice minutes or the SMS are going to be free. And probably as we move into LTE, the base level of data access will probably be free as well. Note that you will pay if you want to up the quality of service. And the reason that you'll have basic rate data free is that the mobile network operators will want to operate their data networks at 100% all the time. And the reason they want to do that is because it costs them the same running it empty as it does full. But also, when it's full, it maximizes the opportunity to upsell quality of service upgrades.
So they'll be selling essentially what are network management functions in the QoS delivery.
Yes, yeah. And so if you're not bothered,
exactly counter to the QoS concepts that are being foisted on the public now with respect to wireline, anyway.
Exactly. I mean, if you're not bothered about how quickly your data gets to the other end, you can just pay nothing. But if you want to do a nailed-up video session like we're doing at the moment, then you're going to have to pay because otherwise you won't get the quality of service and it won't work.
And that's interesting because that's always been a problem with the internet in general, is that people have tried to sell premium packages based on prioritization or quality of service. But when the network's empty, it's very difficult to sell that because you're getting that anyway by default.
Exactly. So because of that, the mobile network operators are going to want to fill up the networks, and the way you do that is you just give it away for free. And I think the first
hasn't there been sort of a pre-existing model for this in the way people were selling MPLS service previously, and that if you wanted to put up a big high-end video conferencing system, you would get a bandwidth assured MPLS connection from a large national provider or international provider.
It didn't really work because the difference in quality between a sort of a non-quad circuit but with a huge bandwidth and I don't know, 2048 2 megabits per second nailed MPLS circuit is pretty negligible these days. And in most cases, you can get away with 99.99% of the time with a cheaper, fatter pipe, and it just kind of works.
Yeah. Of course, the real cost to the carriers longer term is the upstream transit pipe. So, and you're not going to want to keep filling that up and upgrading it when the traffic's free. So I suggest what they'll probably do is encourage it for free, but have a limited capacity out to the internet to maintain congestion. And then if you go for the premium, you probably end up on a different transit pipe.
Yeah. On the subject of upstreams, how is my upstream video working at the moment on my LTE thing up in my umbrella up above me? Is it breaking up?
It's frighteningly vivid.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Keith. Thank you. Don't be fooled by my boyish, youthful looks.
No, we've been counting your hairs, James. It's all right.
That's as good as that, isn't it?
Another thing that's Eurocentric, by the way. So Europe to put an end to phone roaming charges by 2017. Mobile roaming charges are set to be scrapped within the European Union from June 2017.
Yawn, yawn, yawn. Well, some companies have been doing that for years already. In bundle, 66 countries. Yawn, 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 yawn. We don't need to regulate it.
But it is good news compared to some of the stuff that comes out of government, right? Especially federated government.
No, not really. I mean, I think we prefer it if they didn't regulate, then consumers can then vote with their wallets and choose who they want to choose. Like certain networks who do in bundle.
TruePhone.
66 countries in one bundle.
It seems we're in uniform this afternoon, James.
Are you wearing yours? Well,
Yes.
Yeah, it's our TruePhone tropical weather gear, isn't it? Lots of hot. Anyway, can I just very quickly go back to Fi? I just checked my status in the UK Fi queue, and I have been told that I should expect an invite in about 3 weeks' time. And it says we're sending a small number of Project Fi invites to UK users each week, but rest assured that you're on our list. So there we are. And I think I'm about number 7,000 on their list in the UK. So what's that tell you? Probably about 2,000 a week, something like that.
Somewhere in Fi, we have to find a faux and a fum, because we know there's a fee, so we'd have it all in.
So when will that be rolled out to other phones? What's stopping them other than arbitrary limiting the rollout and maybe trying to promote the N6?
Well, listen to this. This is interesting. It says here that you'll be able to get international data without roaming fees in over 120 countries. And then it just says, please check our international rates for information on specific countries. If you travel to 120 plus countries, who does that, I wonder? Data usage will cost the same, $10 per gigabyte, as in the US.
That's not bad.
But note, data speeds are limited. So
Yes.
128K.
256K down.
Well, let me ask a question, though. Is it reasonable to want to watch video, I mean extended video, on your mobile phone in another country? Reasonable meaning...
Yes, I think it is ultimately.
Yes.
I think,
free, though?
Is it reasonable to do video broadcasts from the beach in Italy whilst on holiday in order to join the VUC, Randy?
Well, it is in that exceptional case, yeah.
Yeah, we've got to get our priorities right, haven't we?
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
it's like, why is it any less reasonable to do that when you're on a train in sort of going, or sitting on a station at Waterloo?
Exactly.
Well, in this country, if you're on a train, you're not going to get any kind of speed. I mean, you get H plus or H, but it lasts, for a few minutes, and then you're on another tower, and it's.
Let me just pause for a second and just consider how amazing it is that I'm sitting here on my patio in the middle of the Wiltshire countryside in an area of outstanding natural beauty, where for the last 20 years there's been no mobile phone coverage, and I'm talking to you with video on LTE. How amazing is that?
What's even more amazing is you don't even know where the mast is. It's that far away.
Well, I think I do. But the brilliant thing is that because nobody else knows about it yet.
That's the other thing. As soon as everybody's on LTE in your neighborhood, you'll see that quality, that the speeds will go way down.
Well, because
I've got a tiny, tiny signal strength, but because nobody else knows about it or is on it, it's working. And as soon as everybody else switches on to the fact it's here, it won't work anymore. And I've just got to go and chase a chicken who's picking up my wife's flowers.
Isn't that what MPLS means in James' case? Is my private LTE service?
Yeah. Chasing a chicken, is that euphemism?
I don't understand why James can't put Wi-Fi access repeaters in all those chickens.
I think the cable I might have difficulty interfacing the cable with the chicken.
Well, that would be microwave. You can barbecue them at the same time.
It's a wireless mesh.
Mesh.
What's this, Randy? Answer: it's a microwave.
Ah.
Just as a wireless mesh, you just need to find a way of harnessing the energy of the chicken running around to power a little Raspberry Pi or something.
Ah, there you go.
It's a microwave.
I've just checked where your 4G mast is, James. So.
You know where it is?
Yes.
Burnditch, I think, is it?
It's close to a village that I go through if I take the bottom road.
Aren't there apps that'll show you where the towers are?
Yeah, but they're not up to date. And according to the...
they're not up to date? Is that what you said?
The EE coverage map says that I am in an area where there's no coverage.
Well, you were until 2 days ago.
What does OpenSignal say?
Well, bearing in mind I'm the only person who ever contributes to OpenSignal around here, it'll say what I say it says.
And you're not going to tell them. So.
Yeah, he doesn't want to say anything.
It's our secret. Don't tell anyone. It is my own private LTE cell. Don't tell them. Like.
See if we get Dave Michaels on. Before we go.
Is Dave Michaels on?
Well, I see his...
Come in, Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, really.
How's the snow in Colorado?
Dave's not here, man. You call home later.
Oh, he's on. Yeah. I'll just send him the link. DM. Otherwise, well, you got 10 minutes left. We could just open it to the world, right? From the community, anyway.
So did the Matrix guys actually withdraw their attack on our IRC channel, or how did that play out?
I don't know what happened there.
Because it stopped.
Really?
Oh God. Okay. Yeah. So,
I'll get on to Matrix and ask Matthew.
well, I sent him an invite, but the invites are still not working very well, and a lot of people don't look or care anyway. So that makes sense. Yeah. Is he on? Let's see. I don't see any M. He would be.
Have we got anybody from the Free Switch team on?
I got Ken, but I wrote to him. But Free Switch has gotten so much publicity in the last few days that I figured we need to give him a rest.
Well, I got a rather puzzling.
I invited Luca, but he couldn't make it.
Which Luca?
Luca, unpronounceable last name.
Works for one-on-one in Germany.
Luca Filahedu from
One-to-one.
Blackberry. He works for
One-to-one.
No.
He works at one-on-one. No.
I thought he worked for BlackBerry still. No.
Well, strangely enough,
Maybe you shouldn't be saying all this actually, since
I talked to Luca this morning, and it's a case of watch this space.
well, he's on Wire, so obviously he spoke to him.
Yeah. Yesterday he actually he remarked on Wire that he made his first. Or he was using the Wire Android app on his Passport, and it worked fine. And then Jim Courtney called me last evening, also from the Wire Android app on the Passport.
I thought you guys had already had a call, Michael. No?
We did, but he was using something else. I think he was using. I'm not sure exactly what he was using at that.
Any chance to mention the Passport, right?
Leave it to certain Canadians to. To go forward with the BlackBerry story.
All right, so.
We love you.
And I was thinking of Lucas, not Luca.
Lucas.
Lucas.
Lucas. Who's Lucas?
Lucas from we met him at Camellia World.
Well, that's why I didn't. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, do you want to hear where we were the day before yesterday? No, yesterday, in fact.
Sofia.
We were in Sofia with your favourite person, Randy. The lovely, the beautiful, the intelligent, the empathic.
My favorite person at
Zoa.
Yeah, Zoa.
And the almost as empathic and lovely person who goes with him, Mira. So, in fact, Zoa is amazing. Yeah, when we had him on the VUC, he was on 2 crutches and clearly in a lot of discomfort. So imagine our surprise when we landed at Sofia Airport, went outside, and up should draw up none other than Zoa in his black Mafia BMW. Get in, he said. It's not safe here. So, yeah, he's a lot better. And
is it actually not safe there?
No, it's fine.
It's fine. It's great when you're accompanied by Zoa doing his silly gangster walk. He looks like a real gangster with that walk. But we've got a picture somewhere, haven't we? We've got a Zoa picture.
I've got them.
I'd rather look at pictures of Mira. Have you got any of
Oh,
those?
we've got pictures of Zoa and Mira, if you like.
Yeah. Why don't you share that?
Yeah. Can you get to it before I can, Andy?
Possibly not. I've only got 2 actually. I have this one. I'm going to have to show you from the phone though. I have that one, which actually I've just zoomed in on, so that's more Mira, but that's the actual photo. You see that or not? I don't know if you can.
Yeah, that's right.
Not well enough. I can only see the 2 guys.
Well, Mira deliberately crouched down.
What is Mira doing on her knees?
There you go, especially for you, Randy.
There we go. Thank you. Hold it still. Hold it still.
Let it focus, that's it. Oh, isn't she lovely?
She is absolutely one of the most charming people I have met, and I've met a lot of charming people in my life.
And the other one I have is an odd one. This is James trying to chat up a wall, I think.
That's a typical James.
Yes.
Typical James. There it is.
Yeah, it's one of those should have gone to Specsavers moments, isn't it?
You know that we're at the magical number. We're at the magical time of 1855. 1855 is when all of the wines from Bordeaux were classified. Just in case anybody.
They never did intend that to last as long as it has.
No.
That was done for the World's Fair.
And it's a very stupid classification because it's based on the selling price of each wine. And so the highest selling prices of the wines were given the first growth.
And
good idea for a topic from IRC.
One crazy instance of a second growth that talked its way into becoming a first growth.
There is, yeah. Speaking of which, apparently December 12th, there is a TAD hack in December where you would be able to hear my group play if you come over.
In Paris?
So, yes, in Paris.
Well, we're going to have to come over.
We'll always have Paris, James. At least you will if you come over.
There we go.
I'm trying to get Tim Patton to come over with his daughter, and she can sing with us, too. Because she's a terrific singer. I don't know if you guys knew that. And Andy could sing with us. We'll figure something out.
This is somebody who said, I'm giving up smoking.
Oh, yeah. I know about that.
Yeah,
so my reference to 1855 was that we're coming up to the 1 hour mark, and we either need to find a topic.
Well, we have one. We have one suggested by Magic, and it's a good one too. Which is the last seconds are ticking off the US IPv4 network clock. We're about to run out completely of IPv4 addresses. What's it going to make us do?
That's true that we've talked about that with Dan York a couple of times, but that's right. That my suspicion is that there are plenty of groups holding on to a bunch of these, and also places like, I don't know.
UK Ministry of Defence is a good one. Got a whole Class A.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know about Bluehost, but in my experience with Rackspace, they must have a crap load, a truckload of IPv4 addresses.
Microsoft bought a bunch from somebody, and there's a rumor afoot the last couple of days that the UK's government is actually selling a bunch to concerns in the U.S. and raising hundreds of millions, well, a couple $100 million this way.
Kind of like domain squatting in a way, but
really,
what I'm curious about
the UK MOT ones, because I can't think of any other IP addressing spaces, big ones that the UK government have.
Well, I can't remember. I saw the story. It might have been on Light Reading or one of those. But the UK was actually they had a significant swath. They're going to raise a fair chunk of coin, which was going to help your newly elected government, I think. One of the things I'm curious about is there's come to light this idea that IPv6 is actually presenting a problem with respect to the VPN services that people have been using to shield themselves from various evildoers, and there's a sort of in a lot of these sort of commercial VPN services, using IPv6 leaks.
I've got it now. I've got the story. These IP addresses actually belong to the Department of Work and Pensions. They managed to get a block of 16 million addresses back in 1993, and they managed to sell the first 150,000 addresses to a Norwegian firm for about £600,000. Talk about the money. Right.
Nicely done. I mean,
the thing that strikes me is that if we're getting to the stage now where people are actually prepared to pay, or having to pay to get IPv4 address space, that's got to surely accelerate the penetration of IPv6 because it's the cheap option. It's the free option.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Well, yeah, except that one is one has knowledge overhead where the other has eco overhead, right? And so some people will be willing to pay because they can't take on board the skills fast enough for the scope of what they're hoping to do.
But there's a
And
really
it's
good
not
business
fine.
case to actually bring somebody in and say, okay, let's look at an enterprise network. So a lot of enterprise networks from the late 90s, who were early adopters of the internet, have got a significant amount of public address space. And there's got to be a business case for some of those guys to say, we'll bring somebody in to actually look at converting our whole network across to IPv6, or at least private addressing, so that we can actually sell that stuff on.
This is actually a huge problem, Keith. When I was working, which goes back a couple of years, I was very friendly with one of the the main guy who ran the IT service for our client, and they had a very important. It wasn't like a corporation; it's a small company, but they had their service. And I said, "Well, what are you guys doing about IPv6?" He says, "Oh, God, it's such a nightmare." And this is a problem specifically with, I don't know, they've got maybe, let's say, 60 employees, but they have a lot of IT. And it's one thing if you're General Motors, yeah, okay, you just pay the millions and you get somebody in there and they do it. And there's a time, there's a roadmap and a time schedule. But when you have a more moderate company, a moderate size company, it's really hard. And it would be a huge headache, like to take things offline. They've got real-time stuff. They're monitoring VATs. This was in the wine production, by the way. So they've got real-time stuff. They've got all their.
But these days, most of it is enabled. I mean, the problem is if you've got any old stuff which is older than, say, 8 to 10 years old.
Yeah.
But anything which is in the last 10 years, I'd say, is IPv6 enabled, and probably actually it's already. I wouldn't say using it, because you unless you've actually enabled it in your kind of gateway routers, it's not going to route it anywhere. But it's certainly pretty much any PC, Mac, Windows, Linux, whatever, in the last 10 years, including XP, has IPv6 enabled in it.
That's right.
But I think, Keith, I think that in their case, I think what they did is they had a huge block, huge for their size of company, of routable IPv4 addresses that they were using. I don't know how. The network was obviously over 10 years old. As far as the equipment, yeah, the PCs are newer and they can do IPv6. Not necessarily the phones, by the way, but that's another story.
No. You don't even need to use it within the network. You can carry on using IPv4 private and just do a translation at the external.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know where they are now. Maybe the next time I talk to him.
It's really interesting just to go down the list of assigned /8 blocks, just to see who's got them. So people like the General Electric Company, GEC, Level 3, IBM, AT&T, Apple have got their own /8, Ford Motor Company, Halliburton. How about Network 44, which is the amateur radio digital communications community?
Yes, go.
What I'm intrigued about.
56, the U.S. Postal Service.
Yeah.
Well played, U.S. Postal Service.
What I'm intrigued about is the commercial and legal implications of selling these IP addresses, because in theory they don't belong to you. In theory, RIPE or ARIN or whoever can actually turn around and say, unless you can prove that you're still using that block and that you've got good reason to use it, we will take it back off of you.
That's very true. And another
point too, because I'm sure there are huge blocks of stuff that were brought as, hey, we better get this now, and they're not being used.
And if you're turning around and saying, well, we don't need this anymore, who wants to buy it, then that's surely a case of saying, well, you obviously don't need it anymore.
Should be illegal, yeah.
And here's another interesting fact. There are 13 /8 networks. 13 owned by the US Department of Defense. And bearing in mind that they really don't want to be playing on the public internet, that's rather a lot of addresses, isn't it, really?
Yeah. But,
well, I have a solution to that. They should all get on Kim.com's new mega internet, and that way they wouldn't be on the public internet. And that might solve the problem that they have with the 100,000 XP workstations still in operation that they just paid $60 million to Microsoft.
Not only that, once they actually put him inside, they can sequestrate the whole network, and then they've got it.
I just think it's funny that they paid $60 million to Microsoft to get XP support through the end of the year. for these 100,000 workstations. That's not the DoD. That's just the Navy.
Didn't the latest news was that Windows 8 or 8.1 or something has surpassed XP in penetration, right?
Well,
So XP is no longer the #1 that it was for a long time.
Here's another interesting little factoid. Not surprisingly, the US are the biggest user or holder as a country of IP addresses. But guess where #2 is? A country.
Us.
No, it isn't.
China.
Germany?
UK is actually #4.
Korea.
#5. Korea is #6.
Ah, I thought
Japan?
I was.
India.
Japan is #3.
Oh.
Canada then.
Canada is #8.
Ooh.
Come on, who's #2?
Australia.
#11. Come on, keep going.
#2. France.
France is #7,
No,
surprisingly.
Norway.
Russia.
No, Russia's 13, and lucky
Denmark.
think about it. Who has lots and lots of people?
India.
China.
I said China a way back.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry, Keith.
Yeah.
No, in
China. Okay.
fact, China. And China has currently got of the order of 330 million IP4 addresses.
So 1 for every 4 people.
You see, Canada is okay in terms of having a limited address space until the Internet of Things reaches the point where we need to have an IP for every maple tree that we're tapping, and then we're in trouble.
Good one.
Yeah.
Every hockey player.
And
1 for each boot.
in terms of the number of addresses per population, the United States have got about they've got about 4.9 addresses for every man, woman, and child in the United States. That makes them the richest nation with IP addresses. Whereas poor old India only has 28 IP addresses for every 1,000 population.
Wow.
So there you go. Google is a wondrous thing, isn't it?
It is, and this is going to be interesting too, because probably the penetration of distribution of IP addresses between fixed and mobile devices is probably going to be quite different across different geographies. I would think.
LTE, I think, mandates IPv6 support, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It does indeed.
And I do think a lot of the scarcity is partly invented, but I think it's a good thing because there will become a point where we genuinely are exhausted, and it will become increasingly painful to get to that point.
Me, I'm exhausted already.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, but that's
it will become increasingly painful to get to that point in terms of administration, stuff like that, and
Randy,
and people are basically sticking their heads in the sand. I mean,
Gmail.
I look at.
What were you saying, James?
Check your Gmail.
Check my Gmail. I was just about to end this session.
Oh, quickly, check it now. I sent you something.
So while we're
Nice. Excellent.
time, I have a question about a coming VUC, and this is when we're going to have GrandStream and we're going to have a SIP MCU available to us for a limited number of people. I lofted this idea, only Randy responded, but the idea being that we would put a handful of people on this SIP MCU and then bridge that into the Hangout.
Yep.
I guess what I'm looking for is some sense of who has what sort of SIP endpoint that we could test with this.
What are you looking for?
Yeah,
What do we need?
I think for the details of this, we can do this privately, but I do think it's a good idea, and I think we will do it.
Okay.
So let's call an end to the public part of this. I just want to mention, since we're talking about previews, 1 week from today, Digium, an update on Astracon.
Wrong. Is that David Duffett?
I think it's going to be David Duffett.
He's a lovely chap.
He is, and he usually has chocolates and fake mustaches. The 17th of July, let's go up to my vacation, okay? 17th of July, Test RTC. That's Sagi, who's going to join us and talk about that.
Talking about testing RTC.
Yeah, and it should be really, really interesting. He's always compelling. Then the 24th, Michael is going to help us with, how do you pronounce that, Michael? Aver?
Oh,
DER?
Aviar. Aviar is bringing a new video conference endpoint to play with. So.
And then the 31st of July, I will be in California, so I don't know what the topic is going to be. But we are going to end this one because it's a good time to end it, I think. Can we end it with a 400 cycle, 400 hertz tone? No, probably not. Probably not. We're going to end it with this. Okay?
Give us a chord.
Come back to us next week, and we'll be talking to Mr. Duffett, and probably Matt will be with us, and some of the other Digium folks. Stay tuned for the mature audience's version of the VUC any second now.
Hey, that was the bleeding edge of the IP communications and VoIP community. We're at vuc.me on the web. Thanks to Simwood.com, who can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is provided by onsip.com. The site at vuc.me is on bluehost.com. We use zipdx.com for our wideband, full-featured conference bridge. And our local rate dial-ins are from voxbone.com. Every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. See you next week.
Look to the skies. Keep watching the skies.